Anything question mark? I'm getting no audio.
Good morning, Melissa. I hear you fine.
Oh,
Nothing from the meeting room.
oh, fabulous. Actually, Marilyn, that was me dictating a text to you.
We heard you.
So funny.
All good.
I was just getting very worried. I'm off video so I can finish eating my toast.
Non-discrimination notice and the ethics reminder, and we'll do a roll call. We'll just go around the table and start with this round. Barbara.
Danny Allen from the town of Carborough. My nameplate, apologies.
Carl Rich, City of Durham. Hello, everyone.
Nida Alam, Durham County.
Doug Lachinsky with DCHC.
Rick Vitale, City of Durham staff,
You're the chair of the technical.
and the new chair.
New
of the
chair, all right.
Committee.
All right.
Kelly Green, new from Go Triangle. Amy Fowler from Orange County.
Are there any adjustments to the agenda?
None that I'm aware of.
The agenda and consent items.
Second.
Okay.
Aye.
Is anyone signed up for public comment?
No comments.
No, okay,
Anybody online? Okay, great, thank you.
all right. We'll move on to our action items, and this is the approval of the DCHC MPO, I almost said, with rebrand to Triangle West Transportation Planning Organization, and it looks like Colleen McHugh will be.
Good morning, everyone. I am here to talk with you about the rebranding that the MPO has been working on over the last several months. Many of you will remember that last year we held a focus group with this board to discuss the current brand and the vision for the future name and branding. I'm going to go through a quick presentation to explain to you what Carborough Creative has developed for us as far as a new brand, and happy to answer any questions about it. Next slide. Next slide. So talk a little bit about our brand strategy. Next slide. Keep going. Thank you. There we go. So the mission, after the focus group discussions and discussions with staff, we came up with the following mission: to be a progressive and equitable advocate and facilitator in developing our region's transportation system in a way that improves the quality of life for all residents. And the vision is an equitable and sustainable transportation system that expands choices and opportunities for the region as it continues to grow. And there are four main brand values: equity, collaboration, expanding opportunities, and innovation. Next slide. And this is our unique value proposition as the MPO. We are the regional convener with a progressive mentality amongst your members, consistently keeping equity and innovation at the forefront of your plans. You're able to move plans and projects forward more quickly in this way, and you also have more detailed conversations on the region's needs. The positioning statement is: we're an advocate and thought leader for transportation systems in the region that are equitable and improve the quality of life for region's residents. And the voice and personality. Our voice is informative and knowledgeable, honest and inclusive, and our personality is innovative, forward-thinking, collaborative, reliable, transparent, and equitable. So I'm not going to go through and read all of this, but essentially, this is embodying those 4 values that the focus groups came up with and that Carrboro Creative assisted us with. That's our brand persona. And then continued, we're going to be seen as a thought leader in the region's transportation system, but want to make sure it does not come across as elitist or like we know better than our members or the communities we serve. We will use everyday language, especially with the general public, to appeal to their needs, making sure our language is inclusive and that we are transparent in communicating our plans to create a sense of community with our members. Skipped ahead. All right, next one. The key messaging drivers are the interconnectivity of long-range plans and the various communities within our MPO, supporting sustainable growth through transportation. And I'm going to talk a little bit about, what is an MPO versus a transportation planning organization. Our current name as Metropolitan Planning Organization, we found that oftentimes we'd have to do more explaining about what it is that we actually do because transportation wasn't in the name. So looking around the state and around the country, there are other MPOs that are called a TPO, a Transportation Planning Organization. And so we felt that would help the general public and our members understand more about what it is that we do at the MPO. Next. So the goal is to improve the quality of life in our region, equity-focused transportation projects, and community empowerment. Next slide. Our name. So a little bit about the new name. There were 5 considerations. So we wanted to be inclusive of all of our communities in the region, be more descriptive about what we do, getting back to that TPO versus the MPO, avoiding a bunch of acronyms. This is something that we're really guilty of in transportation planning and design. We use a lot of alphabet soup. We want our name to be easy to remember and then also provide flexibility for our long-term growth of our agency. Slide. And as far as the brand and the visual identity, the new logo will represent the region in all forms of transportation, have a color palette that differentiates us while also tying us in with Central Pines Regional Council and our old colors, and then include design elements that represent the community and interconnection. So with that, I will announce our new name is Triangle West Transportation Planning Organization. We're really excited about this new name and brand and sharing that with the community. So the motion before you today is to adopt Triangle West Transportation Planning Organization as our new name and our new logo. This whole PowerPoint was done in the design of our new logo and brand. So turn it over to you all.
Are there questions?
Yes.
In the packet originally, I saw the actual picture of it.
Yes, there is one in the agenda packet. It wasn't in the presentation.
Pull it up.
Yeah, let's pull it up.
Okay.
And we did have an event here yesterday where we did soft launch. So you'll see some of our brand colors in the balloons over here on the side.
And while they're pulling that up, from a practical standpoint, the next steps to implementing the change will include updating the memorandum of understanding we have with our partners. And there are some other housekeeping items to put off to address for a change. We'll be sort of getting pre-approval from NCDOT for the changes we'd like to make, and then having a meeting with a presentation here at future board meeting to talk about those changes. And I'll be visiting each of the member legislative bodies to ask them to sign off on the updated MOU. And that will culminate the legal changes to the, what we need to do. Because we're a very unique kind of organization. We're not a corporation. We're not a chartered local government. We're a conceived body for federal legislation. We don't have our own IRS identifier. That's why we use Central Pines, and most MPOs do not. So those will be, you know, from the implementation side. We'll be updating our website and our domain names and emails over the next few months with a goal for completing that at the beginning of the fiscal year that will start in July with the complete website overhaul. So that's what we're looking at. Again, we did this to be inclusive and forward thinking and better explain our identity. What a metropolitan planning organization is. Really excited. The ultimate identity and the branding package was again created after consulting with our partners and stakeholders. So, creative team from Carver did a great job on it. Carver Creative is the name of the group. There are plenty of creative folks at Town of Carver.
We'll plan them.
Yes.
So, thanks, Chair. So just a couple things. First of all, I love the name. It's great. And I think it's both having transportation in our name is so important. It says what we do, you know. But also Triangle West is also, I think, a better delineator of who we are. I mean, it's certainly for like Chatham, right? Like you guys are sort of like Durham, Chapel Hill, Carver leaves you all out. So I think it's much more inclusive. So I think it's great. I love how you've done that Chapel Hill, or I'm sorry, Carver Creative is the consultants.
Yes.
Did a great job. I mean, I've seen these rebranding things like screwed up. I think you did a really good job with the mission, the vision, the personality, the values, all that stuff is like right on. So I think really well done. The two questions I have is I just would love your sort of thinking about addressing some of the language pieces. So one thing that I see in a lot of the mission vision is like this notion of like quality of life, you know, which is great. I think we want to lift up quality of life. It doesn't mention mobility as much. So how did you think about mobility versus, because quality of life includes what we do, but also is broader in some ways. So, but mobility is not a word that's used a lot. So can you say more about what the discussion was around mobility?
Yeah, honestly, I think mobility is included in the quality of life discussion. You know, while it wasn't specifically mentioned in here, that's a really important part of the brand and what we do.
And we can reinforce that next Monday. We're having a board strategic planning retreat. So the information in the packet and branding information, when it talks about, you know, mission statement, that's for the branding specifically. That is not that we're asking you to adopt that as this board's vision statement, and then subsequently, you know, strategic goals and objectives. So that is specific to the branding package that Carver put together. Their work is centered around our forward-facing, our publicly facing, the energy and vibe that goes into the logo and the language we use. Mobility is included in that. But let's, you know, keep that question up when we go with our strategic planning on Monday with folks sound work. Really put that as, you know, mobility being one of our desired organizational transportation planning.
I think so, because again, like using the former language of like the MPO was kind of like this vague. Transportation seems what we do in the same way that quality of life is certainly what we're all about. But like to me, the bigger piece is it's about mobility, right? That allows so many things, whether it's recreation or jobs or enjoyment. So I think that's important to keep light of. The other word I wanted to lift up was that there's a lot about sort of collaborator or convener or innovator, which is all good stuff. Like it doesn't mention like the technical expertise that the now TPO provides, right? And I know you probably don't want to sound super wonky, right? But I think I think part of the real value here is in the staff and the expertise you bring to these transportation conversations. So I just would love
that's great
some
feedback.
thoughts on, why like that kind of language maybe is not in there as much. So
I think we can incorporate that in to our branding.
And innovation is one of our
Yeah.
key drivers. I mean, we are a world-class, world-renowned technology center. Our transportation system should reflect that.
Thank you.
So I'm new here as Go Triangle. But I want to, and maybe it's in, this is not the, maybe this rollout is not the place for it, but what I didn't see is mention of collaboration with the other, like Go Triangle, Campo. The Go Triangle is in the process of rewriting a strategic plan. And we too are positioning ourselves as a regional convener of those conversations. And I don't want to think of us in competition. I want to think of us as working as collaboratively as a whole. It's my song the next 2 years that go by, and possibly here as well, which is we need to be thinking of, if we're going to be thinking about transit for the region, we need to be thinking together as all of these different entities collaborative so that we're growing. So I mean, I'm new, I wasn't involved in any of these conversations, and maybe this is already taken, but I didn't see anything about collaborating with the other entities in the region.
I mean, right after this meeting, I'll be going over the meeting. Transit partner liaisons. So yes, I think collaboration is one of the core pillars of the branding, but definitely it's baked into our DNA. Triangle, definitely NCDOT for all the things we work on together. They're our largest partner, and for many of our partners, you know, we're here to work together, and we'll continue to carry that forward. Working together is very, very hard. And looking across our region, we have a lot of passionate folks and passionate interests, and there are lots of commonalities there that sometimes get overlooked because of organizational and institutional differences. We want to continue to press forward and remind everyone that working together is really key. Those other commonalities.
It should be the goal.
Yes.
And then I do think we have to remember that all of the language in this presentation was really just around the rebrand,
Yes.
not around the organization and its mission, vision, or any of the really strategic pillars of the work. Is there a motion to, are we saying adopt or approve the new name Triangle West Transportation Planning Organization and the new brand?
Second.
All in favor, signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Motion carries. Thank you.
Thank you very much.
I think Melissa.
Oh, I was raising my hand as a vote.
Sorry, I didn't even get to say what it was. The fiscal year 2024-2033 Transportation Improvement Program updates and.
So the action I'm requesting for you today is to approve our so I really back up in December. We did receive one comment asking for additional details on a particular section. We are currently following up with the NCDOT just to learn more about this project and to learn the alternatives. We're pressing this movement. We are also requesting our call for amendments, amendment number 6, minimum for TC, that will be going on about next month. And then one additional update in regards to Spot, since there is no items this month. Originally it was slated to be released in this month, but it has been delayed for February. The board presentation meeting is next week, and we have not received it yet, and so this point is likely to be delayed another month. We'll see you in the next couple of days. Until then, that is all it's asking for the approval.
We can, is there a motion to approve the TIP amendment number 5? Second?
Second.
In favor? Aye. Any opposed? None. Motion carries. It's 2024 update program management plan for section 5310 grant, enhanced mobility for seniors and individuals with disabilities.
Back. Colleen McGee, planning manager. So I know we have some new board members, so I'm going to explain a little bit about what this is for those of you who are new. Every 2 years, the MPO is responsible for selecting and funding transportation projects that improve mobility for seniors and people with disabilities through the FTA Section 5310 grant. The program management plan, or the PMP, to use the acronym, is this plan creates the rules for how the MPO is going to select and fund and implement the projects that are selected through that grant program. We're updating the PMP to include references to our recently adopted Coordinated Public Transit Human Services Transportation Plan, or the Coordinated Plan for short, which we updated early 2024, I think it's March. We also are including some additional edits to include some clarification around the relationship between the City of Durham and the MPO as far as, or the TPO, sorry, I should say, as far as administering these funds, because the City of Durham is still the direct recipient of Section 5310 for our area, but we will work closely together on administering this program. So the MPO will still continue to select the projects. We will adopt the program of projects, which you all did in October of last year. And now we also have an additional checklist for project manager review, the uniform guidance audit findings. And this was something that was requested by FTA during the recent audit that they did with the City of Durham. So with all of these changes, we're bringing forward this update to the PMP. The draft PMP you all released for public comment back in October. It was open for the last couple months. We did not receive any comments from the public. So, you know, it was posted in all the traditional ways on our social media, our website. We sent it out to our partners. We sent out a press release. However, you know, this is a pretty technical document, so I imagine members of the public didn't weigh in on it for that reason. So with that, the TC recommended the board adopt this 2024 update to the PMP, and the action requested of you all today is to adopt the PMP update.
Are there questions from the board?
Thank you. This isn't a question about this, but just what is the plan for the MPO around, I guess, the freezing of all federal grants and dollars? So I know we don't have a formal lobbyist, but I think for towns and municipalities who do, reaching out to their lobbyists to get that done.
Doug and I were texting about this morning, actually, right before the meeting.
Yes, so now in multiple executive orders, the new federal administration has directed a pause or to review federal grant and funding disbursements. After the first one, the American Association of State Highway Transportation Officials reached out for clarification to the administration regarding highway funding, or basically federal transportation funds, but most notably on highways. And we're assured that the funding pause is not intended to stop the flow of federal aid funds from USDOT to the states. This program and really almost all of our programming outside of locally and rural transit funds flow through federal aid transportation. So while we've had some assurances, at least verbally, from our partners at AASHTO, our guidance from our partners, the Federal Highway Administration and Federal Transit Administration, are proceed under existing guidance until it's replaced with new guidance. We've not received any new guidance, but we are monitoring everything very carefully and paying attention to what's going on. So while there are some, very disruptive and dynamic situations happening in news headlines and the discussion with the White House, there's still a process for changing rules of the federal government and policies. And we've got to wait to see about how that unfolds, even though the uncertainty does put really everyone and our partners on that.
Any other questions from the board? Okay, is there a motion to adopt the 2024?
So moved.
Right. So when we're approving these motions now, there's still MPO motions.
These will be TPO motions. Yeah, moving forward now that you all have adopted our new name. We will be updating all of that forward.
Putting agendas.
We'll have our new name and brand on it.
Perfect.
And we're still a metropolitan planning organization that's established by federal rules. We're basically doing business as.
Yes,
Triangle West.
that's a good way of putting it.
Never quit though, always Triangle West.
Okay, informational items. Item 11 is targets for safety performance measures.
Morning, everyone. My name is David Miller, and I'm a transportation planner with the TPO, and we are joined by Brian Murphy from the NCDOT Traffic Safety Unit. The action is to receive the presentation on target setting for safety performance measures and provide feedback. So safety performance measures require target setting on an annual basis. MPOs have two options available to them: to either support their state DOT targets or to develop their own safety targets. The MPO board last supported the state DOT targets during the last cycle, so January of 2024. And we have until February 27th to either support the state DOT targets once again or to develop our own. We do plan on bringing this item back to the TC and board in February for action in order to meet that deadline. So Brian will be going into more detail about the 5 performance measures that require target setting, but we have included them here at the top of the screen. And they are number of fatalities, fatality rates, number of serious injuries, serious injury rates, and then the number of non-motorized fatalities and serious injuries. And to help get the conversation started, we did want to share some of the ongoing and recent safety planning work that we've been doing at the MPO. The first that I want to mention is the regional safety action planning process that the MPO is working on with many of its members, FHWA, NCDOT, our consultants, Tool Design, and VHB. And we are also coordinating with other regional safety action planning efforts with the Area MPO and Central Pines RPO, who are also working on safety action plans. And I will note that one of the results or outcomes of the safety action plan will be a framework for the MPO to develop its own safety targets if staff are directed to do so. And so this could be available for target setting during the next cycle, so around January of 2026. The second item I'll mention is the wildlife crossings plan that the MPO board adopted in November. And this plan identified project recommendations that could improve roadway safety by encouraging wildlife to use culverts and underpasses that promote movement rather than on our busy roads. And then the final thing that I'll mention is MPO staff participates in the annual Vision Zero Leadership Institute as well as monthly Vision Zero coordination meetings that are attended not only by our members, but from jurisdictions from around the state. And both of those opportunities are organized and facilitated by the UNC Highway Safety Research Center. Now I will turn it over to Brian to walk us through some of the safety data trends, as well as the state's targets for safety performance measures. See the up and down arrow.
Thanks, David. I do appreciate the opportunity to speak a little bit about some of the traffic safety data trends specifically within your MPO area, and then talk a little bit more background on safety performance measures. There's a lot of information in your packet. I won't go through all of that today, just in the interest of time, but there's a lot of information on statewide data trends. I'm going to skip that part largely today and talk more specifically about the data trends within your MPO boundary. Again, I'll give a little more background on safety performance measures, kind of the why we do those, and how we set those at the state level. And then just for awareness purposes, just to share a little bit about some of the safety data resources that might be available. So with that, I'll jump right in and kind of get into some of the data trends specific to your MPO. Spend just a couple extra seconds on this slide because they're all set up kind of similarly afterwards. But and these are really just meant to kind of give you some scale of kind of what's happening within your MPO, and also just give you an idea of how things are trending in your MPO compared to statewide. And so one of the first things that kind of informs some of the safety metrics is vehicle miles traveled. It's a good measure of motor vehicle activity on our public roadway. Not a perfect measure in that it doesn't account for non-motorist activity, but so you'll see here that you certainly see that that's kind of a growing trend over time. You see a big dip there, certainly during the pandemic years where stay-at-home orders and such were in place. And then you see that VMT has rebounded pretty much to where it was before the pandemic years at this point. There's definitely maybe some changes in kind of the peak hours in those situations. Peak hours tend to be longer now and so a little bit more spread out. And that's probably a result of just flexibility kind of in the way people work now. And so one thing that trends pretty closely when we start looking at some of the traffic safety specific trends is reported crashes. And so you'll see these trends look very similar to the previous graph. So they tend to trend very closely with vehicle miles traveled or just activity on our system. Obviously, the more activity on your system, the more opportunity that you have for crashes. And so a couple things to point out here. One is just the scale of these. So 300,000 or so reported crashes at the state level each year. Within your MPO boundary, 12 to 15,000 crashes per year. So there's a lot of public resources, obviously, that are involved in just police responding to these events, EMS. Oftentimes you've got recurring congestion that forms behind these crashes that the public's impacted by. So just the sheer magnitude of the number of these events and thinking through, again, just the public resources that are involved responding to these. Fatalities is probably our key metric that we look at from a traffic safety perspective. And not a lot of great news on this slide. You'll see that these numbers are trending upward, and during the pandemic years, this actually shot up quite dramatically. And that was not just a North Carolina thing. That was, I think, 49 of the 50 states actually saw pretty dramatic increases in fatalities during those pandemic times. But so again, just from a magnitude perspective, about 1,700 of these fatalities on our public road systems per year in recent years. Within your MPO, 30 to 60 of these occurring within your MPO boundary each year. Another key metric that we look at from a safety perspective are disabling type injuries. And so the graph looks a little weird just because there was a definition change in 2016-ish that officers used to determine, what is a disabling type injury. But certainly, again, increasing trends statewide and within your MPO boundary here. Non-motorized fatalities, injuries are primarily bicycle, pedestrian, anybody that's walking, rolling, biking along our roadways. Again, this has been kind of a national trend as well, but certainly see increasing numbers here. And you can see that within your MPO boundary as well. So 15 to 30 of these non-motorist fatalities and serious injuries occurring within your MPO area. And then I'll close on the data trend section with unbelted, just to kind of highlight A couple of things. One is that this is a significant area of growth. So these numbers have more than doubled in the last 10 years at the state level, and even more so than that within your MPO boundary. And so I think this kind of highlights a little bit of the complexity around traffic safety issues. So it's going to take all these things: infrastructure, behavior, enforcement, EMS, all these things kind of working together if we really want to see significant reductions in these numbers. And then in your packet, you'll see a breakdown of just kind of where crashes are occurring within the municipalities within your MPO boundary. I'll touch on a few other ways to look at this, maybe in a little bit more meaningful way here soon. So with that, I'm gonna switch gears a little bit and talk a little bit more about safety performance measures. Again, kind of the how and the why we do these. So it was in 2016, there was federal legislation that passed that required state DOTs and MPOs to set targets for the 5 metrics that you see on the screen here. And those are, again, number and rate of fatalities, number and rate of serious injuries, and then the number of non-motorized fatalities and serious injuries. And FHWA does prescribe how they want to see these targets. So these are based on 5-year rolling averages. The targets are for a calendar year. And this is this is something that we partake in annually. The target dates, as David mentioned, so the state reports in August, and then the MPO must report within 180 days of the state. So how are the targets set? So that's where there is a little bit of flexibility, and it's really kind of up to each state and each MPO. MPO can adopt the state's methodology or come up with their own. And so far, every MPO has adopted the state's methodology, but in 2026, I think there'll be a few MPOs that do kind of set their own target. A lot of those are as a result of those MPOs kind of embarking on safety action plans. And as David mentioned, that's obviously something your MPO is doing, and that's a big step. That's an important step. I applaud you all for doing that. I think there's a lot of good that will come from that, from just an awareness and kind of getting the hands around what that situation is from a traffic safety perspective. And again, just really happy and applaud you guys for doing that. So how does the state set their targets? Well, our targets are related back to our strategic highway safety plan. The strategic highway safety plan is a visionary document at the state level that kind of sets how we'll tackle traffic safety issues. It's not just a DOT document. There's a large band of stakeholders that give input into this. MPOs, municipalities, or travel lands are all very well represented in this process. But with each of this plan update cycle, there's a goal that's adopted. And so the current goal that was adopted with that latest plan is to reduce all fatalities and serious injuries by half by 2035, moving towards 0 by 2050, which is a very ambitious goal. And so how do we set those actual target areas? Well, we know where we are in our baseline year, and then based on that goal that we saw, we want to be half of that by 2035. So we can do some math of knowing where we are, where we want to be, and if we're making steady progress toward that goal, we can kind of determine where we need to be each year if we are making steady progress. And that's it's very simply how we come up with those 5 target measures. So are we assessed? So FHWA does assess the state as to whether they meet or make significant progress. MPOs are not directly assessed, but obviously if the state's going to meet their targets, then all the MPOs, we all have to be moving in the same direction. So based on this last review by Federal Highways, it was determined that North Carolina had not met or made significant progress towards achieving the safety goal. Again, our goals are set in a very ambitious way. And again, the MPO is not assessed. If you were, you'd see a lot of no's on there as well. Targets not achieved and not better than baseline, which just simply means that we're trending upward when it comes to fatalities and serious injuries. Again, a lot of information specific to your MPO in your packet. There's a lot more on our website that you'll see. I'm not going to go into this today, but there's, again, a lot of information. Safety is a very kind of data-rich environment. Excuse me. And there is a lot of information out there available for your MPO. Excuse me. So I'm just going to close here quickly and talk about a few different safety data resources that are available. There's a lot of this. Again, there's links in your package. I won't go through these, but I'll just hit on a couple. One is our safety projects. And so all of our projects that are funded with safety specific funds. So we have federal safety funds, highway safety improvement program funds, and then we have a small pot of state safety specific funds. All those projects are mapped and geolocated. And so you can click on those projects and find out more information about what that accomplish, and also, is it under construction? Is it funded but not in design, complete, these types of things. So there's a lot of information related to that. I know the department is undergoing an effort to kind of make all transportation, a map of kind of all transportation projects in your area more accessible to the public. So a lot of these would be combined effort as that moves forward. And then also I'll hit on our bicycle and pedestrian crash data dashboard. That's one that we've recently revamped. And so this one is more kind of a self-service, so you can select your MPO boundary, your municipality, county, division, whatever you'd like, and then all the numbers and trends around the outside kind of will change to reflect that boundary. You can also select the individual crash events and determine more information about those specific events. So this just gives you kind of a taste maybe of some of the safety data that's available. Again, there's a lot that's out there, and we're here to help support any of those data needs that you all might have as well. I think with that, I'll be happy to take any questions with David as well.
Thank you. I am sure there are questions from this board. I will start with Wendy.
Yeah, well, thank you for this report. I appreciate seeing all of this data. It's really alarming. I know we've had this conversation over and over again here. Looking at the chart, it was on slide 25, the breakdown by municipalities. I mean, it's just shocking, and especially for Durham. I mean, total number of reported crashes, and then we've basically almost doubled. Well, I guess it's hard to say, but I guess anyway, I don't know. It's hard for me to know where we've gone over time, but it's just an astounding number of fatal crashes, serious injury crashes. Anyway, I'm on our local bike pedestrian advisory committee now, and we had a report from the staff that are working on the Vision Zero plan in Durham, and thank you to the MPO for being a part of that. It's really impressive, the work that they're doing and looking at the data and what they're learning about what we can do. And I'm just wondering, how do you foresee NCDOT actually adopting what comes out of the Vision Zero?
Yeah, and then there's a lot of activity. Durham is a great example there. There's a lot of activity, a lot of people that are putting more of an emphasis on safety, which is a good thing, right? You mentioned the numbers they're alarming, and you look at these numbers, and it's kind of hard to. I kind of felt that as you were talking. It's kind of hard to wrap your mind around, exactly kind of how large these numbers are. So yeah, I mean, we're working with Durham and Lauren Groves very closely on her work, and very impressed with that as well. And so. Yeah, I think the end of that, right, is kind of how do you turn that into projects? How do you, there's funding that's needed too, right? I mean, we're always going to be in kind of a resource constrained environment. And I think really a lot of the focus is how do we make those best decisions with the funding that we have? And infrastructure is a big part of that, but also Vision Zero is more than that. It's taking kind of ownership at a community, at a local level of prioritizing safety in our actions, in our personal actions, as we, go about our daily lives. So I think that's a big part of it as well. I think, as part of these plans, and again, I applaud the MPO for taking this step, but I think as part of these plans, you quickly realize that infrastructure is an important part, but it's not the only part if we're really going to have, significant reductions in these numbers. And I think, coming to that realization is an important point. And then the question is, what action do we take beyond that? There's some good examples in other countries that have made significant reductions. And I think there's a lot to learn there. I think our landscape's a little bit different, obviously here, but I think there are things that we can learn from there. So I think, yes, it's maximizing each of these aspects of traffic safety, infrastructure, enforcement, education, and then legislation. There's policy things I think that will come out of this as well.
Yeah, I mean, one of my big takeaways just from the little bit I've was exposed to was that the built environment is the most fundamental, and how we design things, because where we're seeing the big increases is with pedestrian and bike fatalities and injuries. That's where we're seeing the biggest amount of injuries. That really comes down a lot too, and especially in literally the poorest neighborhoods in Durham. There is a lot of really around how we move forward, building our roads and infrastructure and designing them. And there was a lot around left turn lanes being an issue, and also speed. So I mean, the good thing is it's highlighting, the study is showing what there are things that we can do. But NCDOT is going to have to adopt the standards as well. It can't just be, you can't do it in isolation. So I'm glad you're a part of it, and we're really going to have to be serious about it, or else this is just going to be kind of doing this every year is just demonstrative, really.
We have a couple of line comments from Lisa Mathis and Councilmember McCullough. Sure who wants to go first, but you guys.
Yeah. So I'm right there with Wendy. One of the first things I saw last year was, yes, here are our targets, and no, we haven't met them again. And it's kind of like the definition of insanity, where we're expecting a different outcome all of a sudden. I've got no problem with the targets, and I appreciate all this work, and we've got a lot of data here, and it seems like we need to do a better job of taking that data and trying to mine down into root causes and outcomes at a finer level for our safety planning, so that we can try to address the things that are really happening. And so we've got this data, we've got all this mapping, and are we, or why are we not mapping these events, these crash events, with things like lane width, vehicle size? Are there trees on the side of the road? What's the speed versus the road characteristics? Is it forgiving design, or is it not forgiving design? Because forgiving design basically designs for speed, and we need to address that if we're going to try to get to that. For example, in Chapel Hill, MLK Boulevard is basically, it's like a 35-mile speed limit, but it's designed. My own son, a dozen years ago, got picked up for going 50 down MLK, because that's the speed it was designed for. And until we address those root causes, we're not going to cut these numbers down.
Yeah, and I'll just mention a couple of things for that. So the department does have a very robust program that we use to monitor crash data. So crashes are plotted, and that's information that we can certainly provide. We do, on our programs, we look for patterns of crashes that we have really good countermeasures for. So those are typically lane departure crashes. We look for clusters of those. They might be curves, they might be a particular route. The things you mentioned are very important: lane width, roadside. And so that certainly plays an impact on the outcome of those conditions. Other things are pedestrian and bicycle. And so, yeah, the ones that we can look for and we have countermeasures for, and then intersection related or and that we look for patterns that we can actually address with countermeasures that we can implement with safety projects. So the department has a very robust program for that, and your comments are well received. Those are very things that we look for.
See Lisa Mathis. Unmute.
Lisa, you're muted.
Can you hear me now? All right. I was just saying, Melissa, that I was appreciating your comments, and I think design of our roads can, we make these big, wonderful, beautiful roads, and people feel absolutely um, you know, and
Losing Lisa.
We can't really hear
looking,
you.
and, you know, you can't hear me? Can you hear me now?
Turns
At
off your
all?
camera. You're going in and out. Maybe if you turned off your camera.
I'll turn off my camera. Can you hear me now? Can anyone hear me now? All right, you can hear me now. All right, I'm gonna, anyway, I was just saying to Melissa that I appreciated her comments about how road design and transportation design can really affect things. We do have in some areas such big, beautiful roads that people feel invincible, and they're not concerned about their own safety. So they're, you know, because they've got this nice wide area that they're allowed to drive in. And, there are areas that we've implemented things like road diets, just to sort of give people more pause and to slow them down. But, it's not one size fits all. We've also, I was just reading about the tremendous increase in oversized vehicles. We've got, these giant SUVs that have tremendous blind spots, and the impact zones on those kinds of vehicles hit a human being in different places than our smaller vehicles. So we've got a lot of work to do with design, not just in the municipalities and on our roadsides, but also with our cars. So that's a larger problem that we can't solve here today. But I wondered if in this presentation you had information, or are you collecting data on the vehicles that are involved in those incidences?
Yes, ma'am. Yeah, we definitely do have information on the vehicles that are involved. Something that, yeah, we can certainly provide if you're interested in, and that is a factor. And a vehicle fleet is constantly changing. Typically, it's for the better in that you've got more safety devices that are incorporated. You think about airbags and these types of things that have been over time. But maybe a newer one would be electric vehicles. Those are heavier. How do they impact with our built environment, with guardrails and such things? And so I think that vehicle fleet is constantly changing, as you mentioned, SUVs and maybe bigger vehicles, and what impact does that have? There's a lot of research that's going on at the national level to look into exactly those things.
I appreciate hearing that. And, also electric vehicles are quieter. And so, pedestrians are having a harder time, in their situational awareness. They're used to louder vehicles being around. I appreciate all of this. And I also, we also need to overlay into it the population increase. And remember, we're one of, 4 or 5 states in the country that are expected to absorb 50% of the growth in the United States. So we've got another 9 million people coming, and so that's only going to exacerbate this problem, and it probably already has. But thank you so much for the wonderful presentation.
Yes, Nina.
Well, I had a couple of questions. We'll start with this, since we're on this side. I'm a very visual person. Is there a way that we could have, like, for each city, like a map that has like the hot spots of like where we see the highest concentration of accidents?
Yes, absolutely. And yeah, go ahead.
We'll be presenting our Safe Streets for All study for adoption in the next month or two, and
Okay.
that'll have both crash history hotspots and also risk hotspots based on.
Okay, that'd be great. And then
The other thing to say on that is that the MPO has helped Durham with this. So Durham, is developing our Vision Zero plan. And part of that is the whole data around the high injury network that, again, you all helped out to map. So we'll have detailed data about, it's basically like 11% of the roadways that have like 75% of the crashes. So.
And then the other question I had was, so in the fatality slide 18, so there was, And comparing that to the unbelted fatalities. So are you saying that most fatalities occur unbelted? That only 106 fatalities in car crashes were seatbelt?
Yeah, so actually this slide is fatalities and serious injuries, so it's got those grouped together. So yeah, unbelted is around high 30% as far as the percentage of fatalities. So it's a big factor in the number of fatalities that exist.
I think that was all my question, but thank you.
Great questions.
Karen.
I do see another hand raised online.
Hi there. Yes, if you're seeing mine, Maryland Carter, Orange County Board of Commissioners. Just a quick follow-on to the questions about vehicle crash data for those incidents involving pedestrians and bicyclists. Given the very astute comment about EVs being quieter, do we also have data that tells us whether the folks involved on the pedestrian bicyclist side had headphones or were using devices at the time of the accident? Because those two combined seem to be a recipe for certainly some of the incidents.
We don't have great data on that. The only way we could kind of glean that information is if the officer happened to write it in their narrative that described the event, but it's not something that's easily captured.
Thank you.
Thanks for the presentation. Great stuff there. But it is very troubling data. A lot of people are dying. I had one question. Go back to the one that compares municipalities. Like I think Gwen and I were both looking at each other on this graph. So what's striking to me is the total reported crashes, almost 100,000 in Durham. Like our population, or the population of Chapel Hill is like 20% of the population of Durham, but they're only 10% of the crashes there compared to Durham. So I don't know why these crashes are so high in Durham. I'm concerned that it's maybe because of, again, road design, but it's something to, I don't know if you have any thoughts on why that would be so high in Durham. Again, represented given our population.
Yeah, and I think those are the kind of details that you'll get into with the highway safety plan. So that's really taking a more detailed look at kind of where, the where behind these crashes are occurring.
On that, like, I think it also takes into consideration, like, how many people from these other municipalities are coming into Durham, like traveling within Durham versus people from Durham traveling to these other.
Well, it looks like from this, as the state officially adopted Vision Zero, it looks like with the goals, it sounds like it's a Vision Zero type goal.
Yes, yes.
But it's striking if you go to slide, I think it's slide number 31 again, that shows the performance relative to the goal. So we're actually we're going backwards, right? So the goal suggests we should be reducing and we're actually going up, right? So I guess I'm concerned that, we have this data, right? But it's data driving not only knowledge, but it's data driving decisions. And it seems like it's not, And so from my perspective, I know we're thinking about potentially adopting new safety measures in our MPO, which I think makes sense on some level. But if that data doesn't help us drive decisions better, then I'm not sure that exercise really makes sense, right? So I want to know that we're really going to use the data to change our decision making here. I know that as one example, I guess a lot of it is we at the MPO need more cooperation from the state on this stuff. The STI law, which still requires so much investment in roads compared to other things, we're trying to implement our Vision Zero plan, but our resources are limited, right? And they're constrained by the STI law. I also know we're going to be meeting, I think Lisa's going to come next Thursday, this Thursday this week, to the site in Durham, one of our one-way pairs where a school bus crashed into the back of a house, And so we're trying to convert those one-way pairs into two-way traffic calming streets, but it's been really difficult and we need cooperation from DOT on that. So again, we need the data, but the data needs to lead to better decision-making. Thank you.
Okay. Oh, sorry.
And just on that note, we will have some recommendations for the Safe Streets for All effort that incorporates the data into what the MPO does at our level. So we are trying to think, how do we make all of our collaboration and data analysis more effective?
Lead to better outcomes.
I just want to make a comment regarding Mr. McCullough's query about kind of getting to the qualitative level of analysis of knowing, we know where the crashes happen. We know some basic information from uniform reporting tools that law enforcement uses to record these incidents. But how would you match up? We know that this incident happened at this intersection. We know some basic information, but the deeper level of how many lanes, how wide were the lanes, and kind of qualitative information about transportation infrastructure. Because that law enforcement reporting form doesn't include that unless it's in the narrative. So I'm curious about how you link up the basic information from law enforcement to what we might know would be transportation infrastructure improvements that we might be.
Great question, and that was more of a challenge many years ago. It's much easier now that we're kind of in a spatial kind of a GIS environment. So we do have really good asset information on roads that the state owns, and so we know those things like speed limits, number of lanes, on the intersection inventory as well, which will have that same kind of asset information at the intersection level. So it kind of helps us know what's there. It's a signalized intersection. Is it unbounded? Did it always stop? Are there pedestrian accommodations? These types of things, and then we can blend that, match that with crash data, and do analysis that way. So it's much easier now that we're in more of a spatial environment. On our non-system roads, the municipal roads, we don't have as good information. I know municipalities a lot of times will maintain kind of their own information, but you know, that's a little bit of a gap for us right now, but we've got some efforts that are looking at. That's a great question. That's kind of what we do in our office kind of day to day, is kind of blend all that information to make better decisions.
So the question that was proposed to us was whether we stick with the state targets or we used a new matrix. And I see that you're talking about data-driven versus goal-driven versus hybrid approach to create new performance measures. And my question is, you know, we're already not meeting our current measures. So would this new approach give you better methods of affecting change, or does it just give us more rigorous goals? Because we really need the first, and we don't need just more rigorous if we're not even meeting our current. But does it give it a way to achieve those goals?
Yeah, so for the action is for this meeting is to provide feedback on the target setting. So that matrix is going to be part of the safety action plan that's currently being worked on. And so that matrix will be ready for the next round, so next year. And so we will likely be bringing this back to the TC and board in February and asking the board to support the state targets due to the amount of time and data collection it'll take to develop our own targets. The state's targets were released, end of November. We didn't have a board meeting in December, so that we're bringing it back here for the first time. And so we really don't have enough time to develop our own this time around, but we wanted to provide information about what we're working on. Yes.
Yeah, my question is, like, is there a purpose in putting funding into planning a more rigorous plan if we're not even meeting our current targets? The question is, does it give us a way to get there and funding for that to achieve those goals?
Yeah, I think safety is embedded in all the planning work that we do. But I think that matrix kind of just helps align with the TPO's priorities. And so if we want to be really ambitious and just say the target for 2026 for the next time is the TPO board decides it wants to be 0, that's really ambitious. That aligns with the TPO's priorities. And so it's just a way to kind of like aspirational in a way. But yeah, I think all the work on and the work that we do with our MPO members and partners in our jurisdictions, I mean, safety is embedded in all of that. And so I think we just have to continue to work together with our partners in these local jurisdictions and NCDOT on plans, on, delivering projects that promote and improve safety.
Yeah, I just want to follow up on Amy's question because I'm not sure.
Yeah.
What I think I heard is that to develop our own measures will, on paper, align with what our goals are. But I guess the question is that really worth it to do that when we're not meeting the less rigorous goals?
And that's a great question.
Hi, I got my hand up.
Can we get this input from Doug, just to be sure that we're addressing the specific questions that were raised?
So when we set the timeline for completing our Safe Streets for All work, we backed it out of needing a deadline for application for funding, I think April this year. We didn't back it out of having the work completed in position to set patient performance targets. So once we're completed with our Safe Streets for All work, which will be done in advance of April, so our partners can apply for funding, we will have the information necessary to develop locally. Follow up to your question, well, what does that actually mean if we have different targets and still not meeting them? The safety plan will also have a series of steps that we feel that, at least initially, should have an impact on improving or at least directing funding towards more safety specific items. Now, I'm not totally familiar with all of the inner workings of NCDOT. I know Brian's office does a lot of work and works with his partners statewide, but I don't know that Brian's office actually delivers any sort of construction projects around safety. Those are dependent on, mostly on the highway division. So we really need to also have ongoing conversation for highway division in our jurisdiction for all of those projects will actually address the safety problems we identified. And that's going to take some time and collaboration and practice to begin working. In the meantime, we heard about, well, there aren't a lot of resources. We're already spending all of our resources on this. One thing I want to bring up, and I think it's worth us all looking at together, is that the Federal Highway Administration evaluates who's approaching or making progress on their safety targets. And states like Alabama, Arkansas, Kentucky, Mississippi, Nebraska, Iowa, West Virginia are a few that, according to at least the most recent evaluation that Federal Highways published, are making substantial progress toward meeting their safety targets. I don't know that I would describe those states as resource heavy. So I'd like us to find out, not just from those state level performance setting exercises, but also some of our peer MPOs in those areas, because there are some. I mean, Birmingham is a peer in Alabama. Des Moines, Iowa, and Quad Cities are going to be peers. There are peers that we can tap on and say, hey, is this working for you? Or what is working for you? How is Alabama making progress towards the safety and North Carolina is not based on setting? Is it setting the targets, or is it something about the program that
What's their baseline?
What's their baseline? How are they effective? Was it just a change in data reporting? That would be a convenient explanation, and maybe that's it, but I don't know. And also, I'd like to look inside North Carolina. I don't know that every location in North Carolina has data trends that match ours. Are there some that are more stable? Are there some that maybe are downtrending slightly? If they're not making their targets, we don't. So we'll continue to look at that and try to bring that information forward. And imitation is the best form of flattery, right? Well, it's unconscionable that 1,600 North Carolinians are dying on our highway. We're just, we're kind of accepting that that's the cost of doing business. I don't think that anybody feels that way. So let's do what we can at our level to make a change.
Thank you. Okay, yes, Melissa?
Yeah, so given where we are, I think that when we get together to talk about safety planning, it'd be helpful to have some of these types of data that we have talked about here today. In the meantime, I think that any additional discussion or resources put to coming up with new targets is just wasted when we could be working on, finding root causes and solutions. I think that we cannot we can't raise the target that would not be politically acceptable, even if it might be more realistic. And we certainly don't want to lower the target and make it even more of a lack of success. I would recommend, actually, I would move that we just adopt the targets and move on to the next step.
Unfortunately, with you being vertical, Councilwoman, you can't make or support a motion here.
Oh, bummer.
Well, yeah. We'll be presenting to the board in a moment. And were there more questions?
Right, go ahead.
I just had a quick comment that one of the hopeful things to me, and I know we're going to get the presentation on the Safe Streets plan, is that a lot of it is really goes back to land use and our ordinances and infrastructure. And that's where at the local level, we really can have an impact. And like for us in Durham, with us revising our UDO right now, it's very important that we be very intentional about safety when we are designing our neighborhoods and our streets and all that, and for developers to also be following those. So on that, in that sense, there is a lot that we can do.
I was going to say, I appreciate Doug's comments. One thing that I think we should be aware of, and I think Lisa Mathis did name it, is that, you know, compared to like in Alabama or Iowa, we are growing much more rapidly, right? So a lot of these numbers are raw numbers. And so it seems like part of what we need is like something either per capita or per 100,000 or something to give us a sense of what they are relative to our population, because we are growing.
And thank you for this, first of all, because you can't fix a problem you can't see, and we need really bright lights shining on some of the spaces where we're not doing a great job. I do think, and I agree with Wendy, that a lot of this is not going to be high dollar work. It's going to be just really intentional local work that we do, and that there are probably a lot of solutions that are within easy reach, and we're not necessarily tying them to outcomes. Right? And I will just give one anecdotal tiny example in Pittsburgh, where across from our county municipal building, there's an area that everyone goes to lunch, 3 or 4 restaurants across the street, and 2 crosswalks, but we made it so easy for people to cross between the crosswalks that that's what the majority of people do. And so we've had a couple of fatalities right there. And it just took the local government and the businesses putting up hedges so that, you know, there will be a couple of really tall guys that are super athletic that can hop, but the vast majority of people are going to crosswalks. And I think there are many opportunities that we can sort of make these decisions locally and start changing behavior, which I think is a significant part of what we're seeing is this increase. But I will call for a motion. Is there a motion, or I think we're just receiving this now?
Like we're just receiving we're accepting the state's goals for this year. Is that what
you can certainly choose to go ahead and make a motion on it now.
I think this consensus from the board has been that we feel comfortable with adopting the state's goals and then setting something of our own for next year rather than spending another month on our sheets. Okay. So is there a motion from this board to adopt the safety targets, state's safety measures? All in favor? Aye. Motion carries.
Chair, just one more question. So it sounds like the staff are going to work on revising the goals in the coming year so next year at this time, we may be able to adopt our own goals. So I guess my question is related to our conversation about how the goals, do they really result in any change or not? Like, is that like a whole person for the whole year? Like, what's the level of staff investment in that?
No. Looking at our data, and working through the matrix you have, it would be, you know, what we would typically prepare for a monthly item for.
So it's not a huge opportunity cost in terms of staff. It's not like
no. All the data that's going to be generated for much of it has already been generated, but the analysis will happen. We'll do it as a team at the Safe Streets for All.
There's item 12, Destination 2055, Metropolitan Transportation Plan update, and Renee Moore is present.
Good morning, everyone. My name is Monet Moore. I'm a principal planner with the new. Thank you all for joining us this morning. I am going to be providing an update on the Metropolitan Transportation Plan for Destination 2055 that we are doing in partnership with Campo. Next slide, please. So just a brief overview of what we have here is our MTP updated process. So as you can see, we are currently in the analysis and evaluation phase, which means we are examining existing conditions. We are forecasting future problems and developing and analyzing alternative scenarios. And so you see this full project schedule here. However, if this process changes, we will make sure as we provide these regular and routine updates that you all are receiving the most recent project schedule. So here are some of the January's key dates. However, this is shifted a little bit. So you probably received an email inviting you all to attend the Campo's MTP 101. Again, we're working in partnership with them. However, they have postponed that, and so it will be rescheduled. We will be sending out some new dates for that as well. Today, we are presenting to you all at this meeting just to provide an update. And then tomorrow, you all will have a really big meeting in partnership with Campo, our joint board meeting, where our Central Pine staff and their staff will be providing an overview of our alternatives analysis and giving a lot more detail in regards to that. So some of the other ongoing MTP activities that are kind of happening behind the scenes, whether it be DCHC staff or Triangle West staff, along with our partners at Campo and Central Pines, we are analyzing communities with environmental justice concerns using more updated data. So we recently received the 2023 American Community Survey data. So we are using that to just reevaluate the community of concerns within our boundaries. Second, we are refining our community viz with support from the local land use planners. So all of your planners at your local jurisdictions that specialize in land use, that specialize in the UDOs, all of those good things, they are reviewing is to make sure that it's accurate, to better inform our process and our model. And then lastly, we have updated the public engagement plan and preparing engagement materials in partnership with Campo. So that will probably be the next few things that you all will start to see and that we'll be talking about as we go through this MTP process. So the last thing that we asked of the staff that work for you all to municipalities, we made a request to the technical committees. So I do want to say thank you to the staff who have been helping us with this, but recognizing that we are focusing on a lot of bike and pedestrian infrastructure. So we have requested from each of the municipalities that we work with to provide these two things, projects that have been completed within the last 4 years and projects that are currently committed in the local plans. So again, this is just us gathering data from the local municipalities to make sure that we are able to incorporate it better into our MTP planning process. And so lastly, we have some of our upcoming milestones based upon the anticipated schedule for the entire MTP process. So a deficiency analysis presentation in February 2025. We're also going to do a formal presentation of the proposed alternatives, but you all will see some of those alternatives tomorrow when you're with your colleagues at the Campo meeting or the joint board meeting. Presentation of alternatives analysis, public engagement of alternatives, which we are starting in March and will likely run until June 2025. And then the presentation of the preferred scenario in June of 2025, and then public engagement on the preferred scenario in July of 2025. So this is just a large overview of a much larger schedule, but we want to make sure that you know when you can expect to hear key items from us, and then also when you can expect us to be in your communities, reaching out to your residents, and so you all know what's happening in your backyards. So that concludes my presentation and the update. I want to thank you all, and then if you do have any questions, we'll be able to take them, but also keep in mind, you'll be hearing a lot more on the MTP tomorrow.
Thank you. Are there questions or? Good. All right. Thank you.
Thank you, everyone.
Also want to note Lisa had to leave, but she is going to send her board report to Doug to distribute to everyone via email.
Thank you.
And then Colleen is gonna remind us about our annual ethics filings.
Very quick. Since this is your first meeting of the year, this is your annual reminder that ethics paperwork will need to be filed. Included in the attachment with some links to where you can file that electronically. I know we have some new board members as well, so Beth and I have been reaching out to you. If you have any questions, please feel free to let Beth or I know, and we'll work closely with Suzanne Singh at the Ethics Commission. So everyone needs to file their ethics paperwork before April, or if there can be fines. Just wanted to be aware of that.
And Colleen, are we each of us, whether we have, if we can just can be done privately? But
Yes. Yeah, I'm happy to coordinate directly with you.
We will remind you because they remind us.
They do. They will be very frequent reminders as we get closer to the deadline, so.
And you only have to do one filing if you're on multiple boards that require.
That is my understanding. I'll confirm that though. I know that some of you are in that position, so.
Okay. Thank you. And there is no report from me. I was trying to remind everyone about the joint meeting tomorrow, but we have to. Okay, report. Chair?
Hey, for those of y'all who don't know me, I'm Eric Vitale. I'm with the city of Durham. I was recently elected as the TC chair, so I don't have my first official report today, but I look forward to working with y'all in the near future.
And then staff.
We've talked about a lot of different things that I was going to bring up verbally, in addition to my written report. Two things I want to follow up with, the strategic rail programming work that we're partnering with the capital area MPO to proceed with is still working through. We've had good meetings with our consultants. We have a lot of folks that are representing our jurisdictions that are involved in those discussions, and I think they've been very fruitful to understand what the size and scale of some of the necessary rail corridor are out there, not just to enhance intercity rail and passenger movements across the region, but also enhance freight land use as an opportunity for our economy. And another item I wanted to explicitly mention was we've had some good work and research within our staff led by Philmon and Colleen on the intersection control evaluation policy that we're helping develop. We've spoken with some folks from other organizations outside the state, including some folks from FDOT that were kind enough to share some time there in Florida about what a successful policy could look like at our level. And our next step is going to be we're getting proposals from a couple of vendors to come in and host an expert-led workshop with our TC members about ICE and hopefully develop a policy that will be sooner than later to adopt. Your technical committee representatives will be involved in continuing to follow. The other, again, and well, I will sum up, we are monitoring everything at the federal level. I think it's probably the front of many people's minds right now. Finding ways to communicate and develop the existing partnerships we have, but also explore and develop new ones going forward.
So Doug, just your point about the strategic rail initiative. So that's the contract we just talked about this late last year, right? Didn't we have a meeting about that?
Yes.
Yeah. So we're going forward with that work.
It's well underway.
And so, and what are the changes? I know that's the Federal Railroad Administration is the sort of agency we would be hoping to receive funding from, right?
Potentially, yes. We're looking at, just all of the funding sources that can impact that and understanding what kind of projects are most attractive. The decision matrix for the Federal Railroad Administration is different than the ones that are used from FTA for, you know, commuter and light rail, and then for federal highways on what makes the highway improvement where it intersects with rail modes. So we're just kind of working through that technical understanding, and we're learning, our local partners are learning alongside us, and yeah, I'm feeling pretty good about it. It's actually been pretty eye-opening.
So your sense is that work will continue at FRA under the current administration?
Yes, the FRA is under the US DOT, so it's our understanding that will.
Okay, moving on to DOT reports. So we know Lisa Mathis's report will be shared. Next we have Becca Galvez with Division 5. Right, Archer, or someone from Division 7?
Yes, good morning, everyone. Please refer to our packet in our updates, project updates in the packet. And I do have one update on those from our residence office. I want to give you a little update on the I-40 project on I-3306A. Update from the residents that we're continuing to progress on the concrete pavement and medium barrier walls on the median. Still working on the large bore pipes being tunneled under the I-40, I-85 interchange. Even though those are not visible from the highway, we are working on them. We should start shifting traffic toward the I-40 median near I-85 soon. We've started removing the barrier walls on the eastbound side to prepare. But the recent cold temperatures that we just experienced were pushed that off a little bit, but the shift should be coming soon. That's all I have. I'll take any questions.
Thank you. Any questions? No? Okay, thank you. Division 8. Okay. Next, Julie Bogle, Transportation Planning Division.
Good morning, Julie. I just had a couple updates. You're probably already aware of these, but I wanted to just remind you all. The Governor's Highway Safety Program grant applications are open and they're due January 31st. And these grants are for initiatives addressing traffic safety, and the selected grantees will use this money to fund projects that occur during the 2026 federal fiscal year. So October this year to September next year. And then NCDOT applications are open for free bicycle helmets. So that application time period is running through February 14th. So just wanted to remind you all. Thank you.
Next, John Grant, Traffic Operations. Reagan Buchanan, Integrated Mobility Division. All right,
Sorry, a report from Division 8 in the chat. Ryan says to send Chatham County questions to him at his email. And that Division 8 will be sending hosting a week-long draft 2026-2035 STIP drop-in at their office in Carthage the week of February 24th through the 28th.
Is there a motion to receive the DOT report? And Doug had one more thing to add.
There's a long list of articles and updates, but I would like to mention to our members that the Regional Transportation Alliance, Joe Malazzo's group, is hosting a Western Region Caucus at next Friday, February 7th from 1 to 3. It'll be hosted by Duke University. If you're a member of that organization or would like any more details, please reach out and be sure to register and attend. We will be attending, as will Durham Mayor Williams, Duke President Price, the RTA Chair Sarah Gaskell, and many other dignitaries, some of whom are in this room. Thank you very much.
Thank you. And that's it. There's a list of those articles. The dates of our upcoming meetings are also here, again, provided tomorrow morning at 9 a.m. And
Is that here?
Excuse me, if I could jump in again, Division 7. Chair Rukowski, just wanted to, I forgot to mention, we also have our drop-in, a public drop-in, February 24th through 28th.
where is that?
This is the division office, Division 7.
All right. Is there a motion to adjourn?
Second.
Thank you all.